Hello, dear ones. Welcome to this special conversation on the different shades and shapes of love. It's special because it's our final episode for the first season of this love podcast experiment. As we always do with each conversation that we've had, can I now invite you to take a moment of centering and breathing with me so we can take a pause together? Sit down with your back up, drop your shoulders, relax, close your eyes, breathe. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. When you're ready, gently open your eyes and now listen with your heart. Today's shade of love is accept. Accept is the love for myself that set me free from craving romantically for a man. We are products of a lifetime of gendered social messages that tell us that every woman needs a man. That to not have one, even for a moment, is a failure at womanhood. I definitely aced that class of failure. Our worth that comes from being married is so ingrained in us that a friend of mine who is gorgeous, intelligent, and affable, and who has never wedded, lamented not with malice, but with genuine envy when I was steep deep in the pain of the divorce. She said, being divorced means someone loved you enough to want to marry you. I have never had that privilege. The pressure to get back to the dating scene was there. The venture capitalist, the flight steward, the lawyer friend with benefit, even as I was still licking my wounds. Then it hit me as I sat in meditation one day that my search for that eternal love to complete me as a woman was never going to be. The only person who will never leave me is me. So I forgave all those who have made me feel less, including Scott, because I forgave myself for not accepting who I have been. I became my most devoted love, friend, partner, and have remained so for the last 10 years, well now 12 years. Perhaps that want for a life of servitude manifested itself in a mysterious way. Self-love is not a selfish endeavor. We were all born from the same burst of love of creation. I am complete as I am, and my connections with others have never been deeper and richer. Yes, my deep love for me has set me free. I'm complete as I am. This reminds me of the mangosteen tree, which is a dioecious plant where male and female flowers grow on separate trees. The female mangosteen trees are able to produce seeds and fruits successfully on their own. So we decided to pair the mangosteen tree with the story in the book. And when I think of who I would love to have a conversation with on this shade of love, of self-acceptance, independence, and triumph, I immediately thought of my fellow nominated member of parliament and dear friend whom I hang out with at our favorite vegan restaurant called Loving Heart at Chu Chet Road, Ip Pin Siu. Pin Siu is a 3-time Paralympic gold medalist in swimming and holds 2 world records. Don't know whether she's added on to that. Her early successes sparked public debate about the treatment and recognition of disabled athletes in Singapore, which brought about changes in the funding, support, and award amounts to these athletes. As an NMP, Pin Siu spoke up for the sports community at large, persons with disabilities, and gender equality. Hello, Pin Siu.
Hi, Antia. It's really nice to be here today.
Yay! I'm so happy to have you. Thank you so much for bravely saying yes.
I didn't even have to think about it. It was like an immediate thing.
See, I have so much love. But seriously, this is actually courage, right? Because this is a podcast experiment. And we are actually using this podcast to discuss love, and the pressing issues of our time. You know, also, I want to thank you, you know, on air for being one of the first actually to grab a copy of my book.
I had to. And I really, really enjoyed the book so much.
Thank you. Thank you. In fact, I think that was when we were just newly minted NMPs, right?
Yes.
When the book 50 Shades of Love came out. So thank you. So this self-acceptance, as I was reading the chapter, this self-acceptance and deep love for me, right, took a good almost 4 decades, which is, you know, and it's a long time after believing in the names of slow, ugly, less that I was called as a little girl, as a young woman. And also, I think society also burdened us, right, with the need for a certain trajectory of life, you know, that you must be before you feel worthy. And so that part for a woman, a huge part of our social values seems to be derived, at least for a long time. I know it's changing, but that social value seems to be derived from having someone who wants to marry you and want to have children with you, right? And I shared about my dear friend, right, who actually thought it was better to have been married and divorced than to not have been married at all. That really hit me, by the way, when she said that. I think, so that's something that was so hard to unpack for me, right? So as I read the story earlier, I can't help though, but be grateful for the colossal collapse, you know, that happened 15 years ago now, that I think in a huge way gave me awareness, right, of the self-doubt that I was riddled with. But I think more importantly, it also ripped apart the layers of conditioning that I was just, you know, sharing about, right? Particularly for me as a woman, and letting me see who I am. And when I learned to release the past by forgiving those who have hurt me, knowingly or unknowingly, but at the same time also forgiving myself for thinking I was never good enough, I come to accept me, right? For the glorious mess that I was, and also the beautiful being I now know I am. This acceptance, I think, led me also to take actions. I think that's important, right? To take actions to give of myself to the world in ways that I could never imagine in the past that I could and I would. And I think in the process, I thrive because I was, you know, being the best human version of myself. You knew about the conditions of your muscular dystrophy at 2 years old, and I mean, your life has just reminded me of someone saying something like, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf," right? And you have done more than surf. I mean, you've become a Paralympian, you know, and gold medalist on this surf. What has been your personal journey of acceptance, Prince Yu?
I think acceptance is a very thin line. So, okay, but maybe we talk about my personal journey first. So, growing up, I knew I was different. There wasn't any other people with disabilities around me. So there was very little representation that I was not alone in this world, right? So, but thankfully, my parents and my siblings really treated me like how they would treat any other kid or sibling. So I didn't have any special treatments. And I think that really, really helped, because in a sense, I know that I'm different, but the people around me didn't see me as that different. So I think that really helped in like growing up and accepting myself for who I am. When I was in primary school in tuition, I wasn't on a wheelchair yet, so I had to wear braces. But what I would do is really like wear jeans to try and hide my disability, try to hide my braces. Of course, I would hear people whispering at the side saying that they think that like something's off, because even though I hit it with my jeans. I still wasn't walking normally. My fingers were still clawed. But in my head, I was like, yeah, I'm hiding it well. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm a completely different person and nobody can actually tell who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was only until I started swimming competitively at 12. And that was the time when my eyes opened. Like it was a whole new world. I saw... Yes, not to quote Aladdin, but like, I really saw so many other people with different kinds of disabilities living their lives to the fullest, having jobs, hanging out with their friends, like doing anything anybody else could do. And that was when I realized that maybe this is the kind of life that I can lead as well, you know? Right? So I think that was the time where like, I truly accepted myself for who I am. Okay, no, I think it's a journey. Maybe until now, it's still like a small part of me hasn't, but I am happy with the way I am. I have learned to live the way I want to. Yeah, and I think I'm still striving for like my independence and things like that. It's a continuous journey. Yeah, right.
For all of us, right?
Yeah.
And I really appreciate what you said that you know, I think this acceptance is such a ongoing journey, an ongoing process, right? Because I mean, if you think about just not just a lifetime of conditioning or just the influences and experience that we had that we have to unpack and share. You know, it's going to be a process. It's not going to be a really overnight thing. I mean, you know, you can have a cathartic moment that I think create a shift, which is obviously what happened to me, right, 15 years ago, which I don't think I wish it on anyone now, but I'm so happy that I went through that.
Yes.
Because that was maybe that was, I would say, the jolt that I needed. And you mentioned about wearing your braces under the jeans, right? I mean, for a long time, I thought by being successful, you know, whether it's in school or whether it's at work, then I'm actually not showing my doubts about myself, right? My the parts of me that I don't accept. And that actually the world will just see who they want to see, but not really who I am. And so that jolt, I think, really helped. But I really appreciate you saying that this is a journey, right? And I also feel that way, that it's still continuously something that I work on, right? Every day, everywhere we go, everything that we listen to, everything that we see on social media, it's easy to call out, right? Some sense of doubt again, or, you know, some sense of, oh, actually, I'm not like that.
Yeah. So like maybe an example would be, so ever since I started swimming competitively and then I'm starting to achieve, I got a lot of validation from the outside world, people telling me that, wow, I'm doing so great and things like that. So I didn't realize this, but for the longest time, I actually tied my self-worth to my results, to my achievements, right? And then in sometime in 2019, like I started to do really badly at training because of some change of things. And then my entire self-worth and confidence just plummeted, like to the extent where I couldn't sleep properly at night. And that's so important for an athlete. It's like literally my job to rest and recover and sleep properly. So like things were not working out. I wasn't doing it right. And then that was when I realized that, oh, this is serious. How can I, as somebody who is supposed to be, okay, I thought that I was very confident. I thought that I was okay with myself, but how could this suddenly happen to me, you know? Yeah, so that was when I realized that I needed to unpack some stuff and to kind of separate these two things, like my self-worth and swimming.
Yeah. I think that's a really important, you know, point that you raised, and so much wisdom there, right? Is that many of us don't realize, it's very unconscious, how we tie our identity, our sense of place, our self-worth, right, to extrinsic rewards or validation, as you said, right, or motivations. And usually it takes something for us to sort of be able to see that link Otherwise, we kind of take it as, you know, it's
coast
just,
along with it.
yeah, it goes along. It's very automatic, right? That way of living. How did you get yourself to unpack that, though? I mean, you were aware, and I go back to what I learned, right, in this process of acceptance, was that first there was awareness for me, then there was acceptance, right?
Yes, awareness is the most important thing. If you're not aware of something, then you cannot fix it because you don't even think about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to be aware of it, and then eventually I had to find ways to validate myself using things that were not extrinsic. So like I was happy with who I am, my past achievements, what I've done in life. Basically just stop comparing myself with other people, other things, and to really live in the moment. And be happy with everything that I've done so far. And it can even be a daily thing. You know, like just being happy with what I did today.
Yeah.
I can be if I lived my day to the fullest, I didn't not that spending too much time in bed is a bad thing, but like if I didn't spend too much time in bed today and actually did something, then it's already a form of like happiness, and I can say that I did my best today, and then let's move on, right? So it's daily.
Yeah. So it's really if you think about it, that acceptance really is self-care. It's very linked to self-care, and therefore from there you can get self-love, because essentially if you were looking after a good friend, or for those who are parents, when you look after your child, if your child is just needing some more time to rest and recover, you actually give a lot of tenderness and love and care, right, to that child.
Even though you're not physically doing it, but holding space and giving them things to do what they want to do, I think it's really precious.
Yeah, but we often forget that about about ourselves, right? We don't do that for ourselves. We can do that for other people who need care and support and love, but we don't actually do that for ourselves. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, actually. The self-care, many people think, is just having sort of champagne in a bubble bath, right? But it's actually more than that. I think it's actually telling yourself at the most subconscious, unconscious level that I care about me. Right? And that care could be different for different people. My care is I need my time on my own with the trees and the sea and the winds and all of that, right? Another person might be just to read a book or to do some writing. And for you,
for me, it's having time to watch something I like at night. It's like having a good skincare routine, just so that I know that I'm actually like taking care of myself, and also time away from people that make me feel very heavy. You know, it's just really like taking time, and then hanging out. It can be alone, it can be with somebody else, hanging out with my friends, and just holding space for each other.
Yeah. Talking about the energy part, right? When you talked about how just having time away from people who may make you feel heavy. And I resonate with that very much, especially since I'm also a coach, right? I mean, not a full-time, but a part-time coach, given the spread I have. One of the things that I've learned is we often think about living our lives by managing our time. But actually, I've learned that it's actually more important to manage our energies. And what you just shared really called up a practice I have too, which is why I don't actually have an open calendar for people to slot in appointments with me. Because if that day I think I'm going to have 2 sessions that are going to require me to give a lot of myself, right, in terms of my energy, then I'm not going to have the whole day packed with that kind of interactions. Because I will be zapped, right? And actually at the later part of the day, I would actually not be holding space very well for both the person and for myself. So that's how I kind of would spread out. If there's going to be one that's going to be one interaction where I have to give more of my energy, then I want to make sure I have time in between, or the next interaction I should be taking energy. I should be replenishing or recharging, right? And whatever that means, that could be me just going for a walk or just having a great vegan meal, like having lunch with you and sneaking in a vegan beer in the middle of the day. So I think that's absolutely right? That's part of also, again, once we accept ourselves, then we are actually giving ourselves the care and the tenderness as we would to a loved one.
Yes. But what do you feel about, like, like how Singaporeans, we are very busy society. Our culture is to always be busy, always be part of the grind and the hustle.
Yeah.
So what do you tell those people, like, who think that I need to work hard now so that I can have a good future for myself and self-care can wait? Like, some people just want to work hard and achieve things. So is that wrong?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I don't think it's necessarily what you do that is gonna get in the way of your self-acceptance or your self-care or your self-love. I think it's why you do what you do, right? Why are you doing it for? If you are doing it because this is something you genuinely like and it's part of you giving your gifts to the world, or you're realizing your potential, or this is part of your purpose, then go work hard. There's some level of energy recharge anyway, because you're doing something that completely aligns to who you are. That's acceptance, right?
Yes.
It's actually knowing who you are, and then what you do would actually I think will reinforce the acceptance. And when we have the acceptance of what we do, I think from the right place, actually it helps to give you energy. You're not going to feel like, oh, I don't want to do this because this is not what I want to do, And I think, and in fact, it's very hard to excel when you don't accept who you are, align what you do with who you have accepted who you are.
So do you think doing some form of something you want to do is also a form of self-care?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's not something that comes easily to Pingsue, because, and so one of the things that when I talk to young people who come and ask me, right, how did you know you want to do this?
Yes.
I said it didn't come, to me at your age, but, 15 years ago when I decided, that my life was meant to take a pivot. Otherwise, why would I have such a massive, colossal collapse that I lost everything? So I think at that point, I knew what I do not want to do. I think so. Part of it is you don't always, those who know immediately, maybe someone like you, right, who knew that swimming was what aligns really with who you are at some level. But now I'm glad that you don't see that as the only definition of who you are. But clearly it still gives you, a level of connection, and that deep acceptance of why you are here.
Yes.
Right?
I love it so much. On some days it is the highlight of my day.
Aww.
I know, right? Like when I tell my other athletes friends that, they're like, what? How can training be the highlight of your day?
They're like, what? What's wrong with you?
Exactly. But really, really, if I still were to think of it and wonder if it's time to move on, it's time to retire, it's time to do anything else, my heart still truly says that I wouldn't be able to enjoy anything as much yet.
Yeah, you see, this, I think it's what it is, right? And it's such a gift. It's a gift. It's also a privilege to be able to find that so young for you. It took me quite a while, right? But at least I'm saying to those out there who feel that they may not still know clearly what they want, at least make sure you are starting to get clearer with what you don't want.
Definitely.
And that process of elimination is a good start, right? We all have different paths to finding the place where we are the most comfortable, the most at ease, right? So I think coming back to acceptance, right? What do you see given when you knew about your condition, and you said that you felt different, and you said that there was no one really at an early age for you to know that there's nothing wrong with you, right? You're not different, but thanks to your parents, you didn't actually get to feel so much that way. How do you think we as a society, right, should support more of this sort of diverse perspectives to the expansion of perspectives to the diversity of how people can be and who people can be? How do you think we can do better there?
I think it's two ways. First of all, it has to be an individual effort. to truly accept yourself for who you are first. And I think by doing that, it's like really trying to do everything in your ability to make yourself the person that you want to be. Right. When I was 7, so I had my condition when I was like around 2, right?
Yeah.
But then we would see so many like Western medicine, Chinese medicine, basically all forms of alternative medicine that my mom could bring me to. We have tried it.
Right.
And the doctors at that point had already said that so my condition is specifically called Charcot-Marie-Tooth, and that this condition is not something that has a cure to it.
Right.
So I remember being maybe a bit older, 9 or 10, and telling my mom, okay, let's stop trying. Let's not waste any more money on this.
You were 9 or 10 when you said that?
I was, okay, initially I thought I was 7, but maybe 7 is a bit too young, right? So I think 9 or 10.
Still?
Yeah.
9 or 10? What do you mean it's too young? It's still young.
So yeah, I just told them like, let's not waste any more money on it. And I can be, I have this CMT, and I shall just, we have tried everything we can. We cannot, and just let me live my life the way I want to live it, right? Rather than spend every weekend really going to see the doctors, and I just didn't feel like I was having as much fun as my brothers.
Right. What's CMT?
Yeah, Charcot-Marie-Tooth. So it's
okay.
specific,
so that's the short form for that. Okay.
Yeah. So it's okay. It used to be a form of muscular dystrophy, but they took it out of the MD umbrella because it's more of a neurological condition than a muscular condition.
Right. So now it stands on its own.
Yep, it stands on its own now.
Okay.
Yeah. So I probably didn't realize at that time that I accepted having this condition, but now looking back, it was like, oh, okay. I think maybe I accepted it. I feel that I can say that maybe because my parents and myself, we've really tried everything we could in our ability. And then I wouldn't say don't have a choice, but we eventually lack the acceptance.
Right.
And so individually, I had to take the effort. And then as
and
a
to exhaust
society,
all options that you have at your disposal.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Ever since I started swimming, I remember having this psychologist tell me once that there are many things in life that we cannot control. I cannot control how fast my competitors are going. I cannot control how the weather will be like today. The only thing I can control is how fast I swim, what I do.
Yes.
Right? Things that are within my control, I can work on them. So that's really the motto that I've taken with life. To control the things I can, and those that I cannot, to just let it go. Right? And so I think living like this has also really helped me to accept myself and my situation, and everyday things that happen to me. I'm not angry with them. I just do what I can. Right? Yeah. So one way is an individual effort, and I think society-wise, it's also really to if you have the acceptance for yourself, I feel that you have a bit more empathy to see the world. Right, it's no longer such a selfish effort anymore. It's also wanting to help others to be who they are, and not constantly put the blame on somebody else if you live this way.
That is so powerful, Pinsue. Let me just pause there and let's actually just take this in. Right, when you have self-acceptance, you also bring more empathy to the world.
Yes.
Right, and I think that's really important, because there are people who may think that self-acceptance is akin to selfishness. But we, and I'm totally with you. I was actually gonna also say that unless we have self-acceptance, it's very hard for us to feel our place in the world, and therefore be able to connect and offer and contribute, right, to the world that we are part of.
Yes.
But yeah, you said it so beautifully, right? That without self-acceptance, we can't bring more empathy. In fact, we may not even bring any empathy at all, because without self-acceptance, you actually become selfish or self-centered, right? Compared to many people out there who might say, but self-acceptance, self-care, isn't that very selfish, very self-focused, very self-centered? But I think that's a major reframe, and also a massive pivot of many perspectives, right? That tend to see self-acceptance in a sort of a narrow lens, from a narrow lens. Yeah. How has that helped you with the empathy aspect of it? Just from your lived experience, your personal experience, once you are able to accept, right?
I feel that it's easier for me to look at things from other people's perspective. It's not always my perspective, and maybe because I have accepted who I am, so I don't find any fault with the world. I don't say I'm like this because something happened to me. So like I feel like every day I live life a bit more lighthearted.
Yeah.
Right, a bit more lighthearted. And I'm able to. I think being in sports also helps because you see so many different cultures, so many different things, talk to so many different people, lived experiences, and it really helps me to understand people's troubles as well. The discrimination that some people may face and things like that. Yeah.
Right. You know, as you're talking, I'm just thinking, wow, nothing is impossible with a willing heart. You know, that's actually, it just came to me as a summary of what you said, right? Ultimately, if you are willing, well, first the awareness and then the acceptance. And the acceptance means you have actually show up with that willingness, right? Your heart is now willing to accept, to be who you are here to be, why you are here. And then nothing is impossible, right? Which has, which includes actually living with a world that obviously can still constantly jojo you and, you know, frustrate you, but it doesn't mean you need to actually be thrown off center.
Like I get frustrated when I see things I don't want to see on social media and things like that.
Of course.
But it's also just being able to forget about the negative emotions and like think about it logically as well. After a while.
And that's really important, right? I think, you know, as you know, I also work with many people, you know, with disabilities, right? And I feel like what you just shared is such a powerful message for all who, you know, are perhaps managing, you know, some of the challenging conditions they have, whether physical or mental, right? And, you know, and to find within themselves and within the support system they have to exhaust all options they can do to help themselves first, and then start to work on accepting themselves. Right. And so I don't think so would you say therefore it's really different from vaccination? Self-acceptance is not like vaccination. That means you're not resigned. Because there's a different energy there, right? I mean, so how do you see the two in terms of, you know, the difference between acceptance and
for
vaccination?
Self-acceptance, you're truly happy with what you are, what you've done. Whereas the other one, it's more like, I can't do anything else. Okay, so if I were to think about it, the main difference would be the empowerment. So if self-acceptance is when it's like when I'm empowered to do something, I've done everything in my ability and I feel the empowerment that yes, I've really tried my best. Whereas vaccination is really just not trying and accepting the fate. Right. So
I think that's
it's about whether you can truly tell yourself, I've done everything I can.
Yeah. And so that is actually with yourself. Have I really truly put myself out there to try everything that I could? If I didn't, then that's the vaccination.
Yes.
Right. I'm just accepting as it is without actually giving myself that opportunity. And I think in that trying, in that effort, that striving, that's when you talked about that empowerment.
Yeah.
Right? That sense of agency and empowerment to say, I am doing something about my situation and circumstances. Because I've done that, I am very at peace with, you know, having been accountable to me, right? And because that's what I should do. Because it's just like a mother would do everything, a parent, right, would do anything for the child. And I have done everything. And then you come to that level. Yeah, that's an important distinction to make, actually. I would also say that acceptance also may mean that we need to understand, right? That something is what it is, and that there's got to be a way through it. And it doesn't mean that you can necessarily change the condition or sometimes even your circumstances. Yes. But there's a way around it, meaning your mental reframe, your attitude,
change of perspective,
right? And how you decide to show up, right? So there's something to be done there. So when you talked about, because I want to go back to this, right? Especially in terms of, just how you mentioned when we grow up as children and we are only exposed to a certain way to be with people around us, it's easy for us to be made to feel different. Yes. And I don't think that necessarily only comes with whether you have a physical condition or a mental condition, right? I mean, there's also emotional burden that you are made to feel different. If you were to, share with our young listeners out there who themselves may be struggling at the moment, right? Feeling that they're different. And look, you and I went through that. I felt different for a long time. Yeah. I must say that then I felt I was so different, and it was a little bit of a curse for a while because I was also called names like ugly and slow and all of that, right? So it was really a curse, all right? I was actually being told that it's not a good thing at all, being different. Yeah. Now I'm so happy. I'm so embracing my difference, right? I like being different. And I think I'm born and made to be different for a reason. Yeah. But how would you say to young people out there who are struggling and feeling like they don't fit in and they don't belong because they feel different?
Yeah. I have spoken to many people with disabilities, and I do understand that I have this privilege of being who I am, of being a Paralympian, of having the opportunities and the resources to be where I am today. But then there are so many of them that maybe don't get this external validation that I started off with, and to them it's still very hard to they feel like the whole world is against them, right? Like if somebody looks at them on the street, they think that they are have some bad thoughts about people with disabilities. Why are you here? Why are you taking up my space and things like that? So I honestly really don't know how to what to say to some of them. But one thing I feel that has really helped me is having a community around me. Right, this support system, this network. So when I was younger, I also felt alone. But eventually, when I started to meet friends, I started to not be so shy and be confident enough to get to know some people. Yeah. And that's when things really changed for me. That was like even before swimming. So it's being able to like just us having a conversation, we are like, whoa, how did I not realize this, right? So having this conversation is so important, having a community to really just talk to and things. And I think this is the first step to really being a bit more out there, being a bit more independent.
Actually, that's really, really important advice, and you know why it's important for me? I don't think you've actually shed some like out there kind of, ways of coping or feeling. This is actually very doable, right? Every single person can do that. Yes, it takes a bit of courage. Yes, it's gonna take you out of your comfort zone, especially if you're not naturally predisposed to initiate a conversation, right? Or go up to someone, in a setting where you are part of a group and then to start a conversation. But that's the bravery and courage that you will have to call up for yourself, right? Knowing that, especially now that you shared that, knowing that that's going to help you create the community and the support system that you need. And in doing so, I think it then, start with the conversation, then from there, have a community. And the community doesn't have to be like 20, 30 people. Your community may even just be one other person.
Exactly.
Right? Or two other people who just make you feel so comfortable when you have the worst of days. This community just makes you feel like it's all right. I don't have to care about the rest. I'm who I am. I am here when I'm with this community. I think that's so powerful.
And talking to somebody really is the best way for them to have a new perspective, have a mind shift. Like if somebody doesn't know about people with disabilities, you may think that I I need help for everything and I need to
Yes.
just stay at home. But after talking to me, you realize that I can do a lot of things, and they carry this mindset on to the next person they meet with a disability.
That's
so
right.
in
That's
fact, you're
right.
actually helping this person to just have a change in mindset as well.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a very powerful one. Okay, let's just take a moment there too. So by coming forward,
Mhm.
right, to share your experience, or to just even have a conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have to start off
Mhm.
even with any advocacy
Yeah.
or trying to make,
Yeah.
big social change in mind. Just actually taking that first step, right? With whatever challenges that you may be going through, whether it's a physical disability or you have, a mental health challenge, to come forward. And by initiating the conversation, you are already taking the first step, planting the first seed
Yeah.
to expanding the perspective of the other person about, the lived experience you have, and
Yes.
therefore, the conditions and the challenges that come with it. And but more importantly, to also know the abilities that a person with those challenges still have,
Yes.
and may even have more
Yeah.
than what you have imagined. And so in doing so, you are actually one person at a time. You're changing mindset, right? And the perspective. That's really powerful. I would also say that that really shows how it's important to come forward, not holding the burden that you're going to be judged. Yes, you may. I don't want to say that you won't, because we don't know who's out there.
Actually, sometimes I don't care if anybody judges me, because I'm only gonna see them once, probably in my life. So I really try to. I try not to be affected by people who like judge so much, because anyway, I'm living my life the way I want to, and I'm happy. So you can judge me for being happy.
and that's your business, not my business, right? You want to judge me, that's your business. I shouldn't care about what you want to judge me with. I think it's also important that this perfection that many of us may hold, we must not confuse that, right, with excellence. Which you obviously have been pursuing excellence. But as you already now know, there's a difference between excellence and perfection. Right.
And I think if you have a change in perspective, sometimes you can even think that people are judging you for good things, People can be judging you for having the courage to come up to speak to them, instead of saying that, maybe this person finds me weird for talking to them. So it's really your own mindset change.
Of course.
Right.
And actually that's that change you want to see in the world really has to come from the change within yourself first, right? So do you think that we are risking self-acceptance also by pursuing self-improvement? And you are a really good person to ask, because not only are you someone who pursue self-improvement, you are pursuing excellence, right? And I mentioned earlier about how people tend to confuse between excellence and perfection.
Yes.
But also there are people who are confused self-acceptance to therefore if you self-accept, does that mean that you don't need to improve anymore? You know what I mean? And I mean, would you like to unpack that a little bit? I mean, for me, I feel, maybe I share mine and then you can have a moment to think. I would say that excellence, I feel, is a personal journey of self-realization, right? Because it's about you, what you want to be the best version of yourself for, right? And that can only, I think, come from acceptance. If you don't have acceptance, how would you know what you want to be, why you're here, or what's the best version you can be of yourself? So if we don't accept that, then I think if we don't accept that we are more than our challenges, then life throws at us and therefore allows us to believe in our possibilities. How could we move ourselves to improve? So I feel like unless you have self-acceptance, you may not actually improve. So if you are actually saying you are accepting and therefore you're not improving, I don't think then we are actually accepting ourselves yet. Okay, it's a bit abstract, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
That might just be actually going back
to
what
we... resignation.
It's more like resignation.
Yeah,
I agree. What's your view on that?
Okay, so I don't think that the both of them are completely have to be completely joined together, you know. For me, after like unpacking what happened in 2019, I think it can be two separate things. Self-acceptance is this innate feeling of being enough for yourself. For me, that's what I think it is. And then improvement, it's both are constant journeys. You do it consistently, but then you work on improving yourself because it makes you happy, right? And then even if at some point you realize that I've done enough improvement for today, I just want to take a break, self-acceptance will still help you feel like, yes, I'm enough for myself. So in a way, both of them are not joined. But if you put the two of them together, if both pots are filled, I think it will make you a very happy person.
Wow, that's wonderfully said. I think that's a great way to make the distinction. Not that they're not linked, but they are not also mutually exclusive, right? And with that, let's wrap up this wonderful conversation. Also, our last one for the season. I can't find a better way. I couldn't have asked for a better way to finish this season, actually. So as what really caught me, and I will ask you for your own, takeaway. What caught me was the 3 C's that I heard from you, right? One was start a conversation, right? Come forward, start a conversation. And that's the first step of change you're making for yourself, with whatever conditions or challenges that you may be handling and managing. The second was from there you build a community. And that's the community that's going to really support you in your accepting of yourself and who you are. The third, I'm torn between two, right? The third is both courage and choices. I feel like a lot of what you've shared with us today has been a lot of choices that you actively made. But that also takes courage. That's why it's courage choices, right? But I don't want to go beyond 3 lah. Then we'll get into the 5 C's, right? Which is so the 3 C's were what I got away. What's your biggest takeaway?
Very similar with yours, but if to add on something, it would be the awareness portion of it. Yeah, I think it's important to be aware of what you can do to accept yourself a bit more, to improve yourself a bit more. Just be more aware of yourself, rather than just constantly always throwing out your ideas on the outside. Sometimes it's important to think about how you feel and what you want.
And to come inward, right?
Come inward.
And again, 3 A's came to me as you're talking. Like awareness, then acceptance, and then act. So awareness, acceptance, actions.
Yes.
Now, listeners who have been following our podcast would know that I usually share some resources before we end the conversation. However, for this last episode on Accept, I would encourage you to go back and listen to all the episodes again, and then schedule time in a quiet place to work on the invitations at the end of each episode. Write down or draw your reflections and process them. You can work with a loved one, your coach or mentor, or even a group of close friends, your community. Then if you are brave enough and wanting to change your mind and expand your heart, look into your eyes in the mirror and say your name, followed by, I approve of you. I love and accept you as you are. You can keep this as a regular practice until you no longer think this is a silly exercise, nor be uncomfortable or unable to do so. If you find yourself dismissing this at this moment as I'm sharing, perhaps I can then dare you to do this as a challenge. Share your thoughts so we can support each other in our personal journeys. As we wrap up the first season, I would like to once again thank all my guests who have bravely and generously stepped forward to bear their hearts out with me, like Tin has, as I bet mine as well. So thank you. Also, most of all, to the listeners for your love all throughout this first season of 50 Shades of Love podcast. This has been a conversation experiment on love and how we should call more on love as we navigate the pressing issues of our time. I'm going to leave you with my favorite quote from Rumi. Your task is not to seek love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it.